Good evening, everyone. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. If we can all stand, those in the audience. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. My name is Phyllis Tinsley. I thank you for attending tonight our town hall on the reopening of our schools. We are very much excited about it, and we hope that you have that same feeling. We ask that you put your questions on the website, or if you have availability to just ask the questions to Mr. Kahuli. And at this time now, I'm going to turn the mic over to our board member, Jeannie Esposito, and she will speak on behalf of the board.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you to all the staff and administrators and teachers who are working so crazy hard to make this work. I realize it's basically a second job to deal with COVID, and everyone's putting out fires every day to try and make this work. And I wanted to thank the parents for their patience and understanding as we all try to figure this out and as new information comes along. Thank you.
To recognize another board member who's here, Ms. Hopkins, Danielle. Thank you for coming, and for those of you at home, you are the smart ones because you are warm and we are out here. But we wanted to welcome you to day 88 of the 2021 school year. And I'm telling you that if you had asked me whether we would be here on day 88 with children in school and with the kind of record that we've had of safe keeping for the school year, I would have said no. But with a lot of effort, we are engaging students K through 12 every day. Yes, we do have some impact of the COVID in our classrooms, but we have a way to deal with it, and we focus in on engagement. We have the protocols, which we'll talk about. The children have been excellent. They're better mask wearers than any of us, and they are wonderful. We have had a minimum amount of school closing. We've dealt with it, and I have to say the principals are on automatic. When a child says that they've been in contact, we have an exact way to handle it, and we'll talk about that. Our staff and our children have been experts in technology. We've done the training that's necessary, and we've introduced new tools, and everyone is getting very familiar with that. And I have to say, kudos to our parents, our PTA, and they have just been remarkable in coming up with great ideas to keep the parents connected to school. And even our food service has been a part of this. Our food service, at the beginning of the year, we were just doing cold food. Remember, we're feeding every student. As per the mandate of the governor. And we've changed our food service to include, I even sampled the pizza on Friday because they have pizza on Fridays. And we have chicken nuggets sometimes. And believe me, I have sampled it all. And I want to say thank you for just sending your precious children to our schools, and know that we value them. Our staff is working very hard to make sure that they're in a safe, and we will continue to be safe. All right.
Good evening. Every day we have to report any of our students or staff are positive, or if they have been tested. So every day I report that to Department of Health, and then the Department of Health puts that on a website. So as of yesterday, throughout our district, we've had 37 students positive and 24 teachers and staff. And then if you take a look at the next page where we go, right now we have about 2,100 students and staff that are employed in the district. We have about 1,400 people on campus, on the 4 campuses, and we have about 573 that are off. So we have teachers and staff that are on virtual, and then we have the rest that are in. So this is reported every day. If I go back 1 second, there's a website. The link to the website is at the bottom. This will be posted online, so if you want to see that website and check it out every day, it is there. It's usually about a day off.
What are the experts saying about schools? Everyone, from the CDC to the Department of Health to all of the various experts are saying that the best place and the safest place for kids to be is in school. And so with that in mind, we really have put a program together to honor that, what they're saying. So if we look at what the CDC director said, they've confirmed that kids K through 12 are safe. The Infectious Disease Society of America, they've also said that the data so far is really revealing that kids are better off in schools and are safer in schools. And Brown University has also tracked the rate of COVID. And I might add that there are many school districts, and we'll talk about it at the end of the day, there are many schools on Long Island that are fully in, full all day. And when we spoke with the Department of Health, they're seeing no significant difference between those students, those schools where all the school children are in full-time. Belmore Merrick is one. We have a whole list at the end of the Beth page, Belmore Merrick, East Wilson. All of their children are in K-12, having daily instruction. And we are watching that data and being mindful of that data as we set our plan for the future.
And so Dr. Lewis points out the CDC and all these other healthcare organizations about the safety that's going on within our buildings, and really the testament to all the efforts and energy we've put into structuring our buildings with all these protocols in place and all these PPE items, which have lent themselves to keep the positivity rates down and the students safe and staff overall. Some of the highlights of what we've done since the beginning of the school year: our maintenance and custodial staff has revamped the way they cleanse and sanitize buildings, which is done on a daily and nightly basis, all of which is logged with paper copies every single day. Secondly, we've removed items from the classroom to allow more space for desks, and we've also added shields for every student. So we have 6-foot distances, and we have shields in place. Along with these deep cleaning protocols and nightly foggings, we've also put into place mobile polycarbonate barriers that we can wheel around and put in instructional spaces and in staff spaces. Along with all the PPE items that we have for our staff and students, whether it be children's masks, adult masks, gloves, gowns, and the list goes on. Some of the finer highlights of what we've been doing is our self-reporting system, which is under our Quick Links tab on our website. If we do have a positive case, we encourage our staff and students to visit that link, fill out, and it immediately lets us know if there's a positive case. Lastly, we've instituted weekly testing for all of our staff and community members as a whole, and we've extended it out to the village as well. I'm proud to say that we've kept averages in the hundreds every week as far as testing, and we've kept our positivity rate very low as compared to the rest of the state. Next slide, please. As we stated in the first reopening presentation back beginning of the year, we did put daily screening in place for all students and staff that attend our buildings. Upon entry, we encourage all students and staff to maintain that 6-foot distance, wear masks, fill out a mobile app questionnaire, which has 3 questions relative to exposure and positivity. When they've completed that, they then walk through a temperature scanner. We've outfitted every building with 3 of these, and every student and staff member has to pass through that. If I can end this slide with a Dr. Romano's quote, which we tell the students on a daily basis: brush your teeth, comb your hair, fill out your questionnaire. And that green light lets you in the building, and off to instruction you go. Thank you.
Because of all of the procedures that we've been speaking about, we were able to open up our clubs and some of our intramurals. As you can see some of the pictures, it looks a little different. We had some online clubs. We did have some intramurals where we got some kids outside. Obviously the social distancing, but I think getting the kids back into the sports and the extracurricular activities has been outstanding. Our kids are excited to be out there with their friends participating, whether it's online or in person, and it's because of the protocols before that everybody is following. We also started athletics. The winter sports started on January 4th. The low to moderate sports started. Just this week, we got approval from Nassau County in New York State to start our high-risk sports. So those sports, the fall season, which will start in March, and the spring season will start in April. Just one of the things that we are going to put into place is that any student playing a high-risk sport or coach of a high-risk sport will have weekly testing. As Mr. Balzan said, when the truck comes on Monday, every athlete in the high risk and every coach will be tested. New York State has also said, and Nassau County said that at home games, each participant can have 2 spectators per athlete that can come to the games. So a couple of things have been lifted. I think if we continue to follow our procedures and protocols, that we'll probably have a better chance of opening up some more things later on. As with everything else that we've been doing, student engagement is starting to pick up. If you look at some of the pictures, there's things going on throughout our buildings, whether it's at the elementary schools, the secondary schools. For the first time, Mr. Benfanti and Mr. Mack and the crew, they got their Martin Luther King celebration online. It was probably one of the better ones we've had, and it was just a great job, a lot of work put into that. Some of the schools celebrated the inauguration. There's some holiday things going on. We've opened up our guidance department for some counseling. So we're starting to really get some things moving forward, and we're looking forward to opening some more.
Of course, our parents and our PTA have really made a difference. If you look at some of the things that they've been challenged to be creative, because of course it's a very difficult time when they're so used to being online. But when we had our reopening committee, one of the things that they said was that we really should look at the things that have worked well to try to preserve those things as we reopen fully. So some of the things that have worked well are some of our virtual PTA meetings. And so more parents, just like you parents at home, are watching and observing this town hall, and you're not missing anything by not being here. We need to think about those things that we can continue to do as we reopen. But some of those fundraisers, the pizza party, the pumpkin patch at Herber, the holiday magic that they did at Dowling. And of course, I have to say, I was thrilled to see the parents at both Davison and Downing do the clap out to say to parents, the parents saying to the teachers how much they appreciate what has been going on. So I want to thank the PTA for their creativity and for them continuing to engage families, to fundraise, to focus on some of the real reasons. I'm a big PTA person, that our schools, that's just the extra special thing about our schools when we have active PTAs and we can engage our families. We also have had the guidance department do Parent Academy, a Parent Academy to help the children through the college admission process. You can imagine what college admissions had to be retooled, had to be reimagined, and they have done an outstanding job of doing a reimagined. We've always had to be creative, and the word reimagine has become one of the words that we have to use.
And with all these nice and great opportunities for both the parents and students, I want to bring us back to what defines a close contact in the COVID environment that we're currently living in. And just to be clear, the CDC defines close contact as being around an infected person for 15 minutes or longer within a 24-hour period and being within 6 feet of them. And we've taken the time to move our desks 6 feet apart for this exact reason and help us in our contact tracing efforts if we do encounter a positive case. When we do encounter a positive case, there is a large contact tracing effort that goes on with the building principals, the nurses of those buildings, myself, and the Department of Health doctors. We look back at a 48-hour look back. We determine who's been around this person under that CDC definition of close contact. We single those individuals or students or staff out. We notify them. The principals notify the class itself, and they are then under observed quarantine. They're in touch with the Department of Health. They're listed as a close contact, and they're monitored that way, and they're not allowed to return until it's safe. They're symptom-free for 72 hours, and they're encouraged to get tested. And when they do come back, we can genuinely say we are entering a safe environment again as we introduce them back to instruction. With the winter break rapidly approaching in mid-February, I did want to review the New York State travel quarantine guidelines to keep in mind. And the real difference here is whether or not you leave the state for more or less than 24 hours. In the event you decide to leave the state for more than 24 hours, I need you to keep these in mind. Before you leave, you need to be able to test in New York 3 days before you depart. You could then return after a 24-hour period. You have to wait 3 days upon your return to New York, and on that fourth day, you do have to take a test, and in the event both of these tests are negative, then you are cleared. Again, these are the New York State travel quarantine guidelines if you're leaving the state for more than 24 hours. If it is less, the guidelines are less stringent, and essentially, upon your return, you do have to test on day 4 of your return, but there's no official quarantine. Assuming you are a negative test, the only thing left that you have to do is fill out a travel form, which is on the New York State Department of Health website. Thank you.
So we've been under phases in all of our schools. You recall last March when the governor issued put us all in the red phase, a stay-at-home order. Nobody could leave. All schools had to be closed. We have, as of August, been in the yellow phase. That is, all of our school buildings could be open, but there were restrictions on social distancing guidelines and the wearing of masks and the limitations of the sizes of groups that we could gather. So that restricted things like the prom, graduation, having meetings. We had to be very mindful of the sizes of our groups. We have nothing has really changed, so we're still existing under that phase, but we await we see that they're opening up restaurants now, and everything has to be by what the governor has said, and of course the governor passes those orders on to Nassau County Department of Health. There have been signs that we are opening up, and we're very mindful of the fact that our seniors did not do anything in their junior year as proms and all the things that the class trips and all of those things, and we're very mindful of that. You know, I was thinking the other day, and I spoke with my staff about this, every single child who's in our district, all of 3 of our schools, K2, 3-5, 6-8, there are 3 grade levels, all of our schools. Every child has spent half of their time in school in COVID. So our second graders leaving Downing in June have only known kindergarten as a full year of instruction, because in the middle of first grade, they stopped. The same thing for our fifth graders, and the same thing for our eighth graders. They've spent half their time in their building. We really want to reverse that. We want to get them back so that they can have those memories of their final year, whether they're 12th graders, 8th graders, 5th graders, or 2nd graders. They have those memories be very different than what we have subjected them for the last year.
And as we've been talking about today, there are a lot of challenges that we have before we can bring some more students back, or even what we're doing every day. We're contact tracing, we're checking out the lunches, we're social distancing, watching transportation. If you see these new barriers, physical barriers that are being constructed, mask and mask breaks, keeping cohorts together, watching the hallways, paying attention to closing buildings and not closing the buildings, making sure everything's being cleaned. Our most important is our learning, our virtual learning and our hybrid learning, making sure those are moving forward, making sure our teachers are being supported. So without all these things working together, we would be closed. But I think we have a staff here that's done an amazing job to make sure everything is moving forward and everybody's doing their job and doing their piece, and we've been very successful so far.
So what would we have to think about if we were to move to the next stage of our reopening plan? Well, first of all, we await the directives from the governor. Right now, he's moving in a direction that says we need to get our kids back in school. But we want to say, Governor, if we're going to do that, you've got to give us those resources. You know, telling us about a 20% cut in state aid and doing full back to school doesn't make sense together. But then, of course, the governor talks about the $15 billion in cut that the federal government has passed on. So I want to say, President Biden, you want kids back in school? You have to give us more aid. I want to talk to Congress. I want to talk to the senators. I want to talk to the Department of Education. The safest place is for children to be in school. Support us with the resources that will allow that to happen. We need to have the number of positive cases start to go down. We need to see cases in our buildings remain at a stable rate. So far, inter-school transfer has not happened. We have to work with our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, to make sure that we keep the cleansing procedures in place and that we can fit safely in the classroom with the barriers. You notice that I'm behind a barrier tonight, and those larger barriers are the ones constructed by our custodians so that every child in grades 6 through 12 right now has their own barriers on their desk. This is a new stage that we've gone into where more kids are coming back. We want to add another layer to it. We have to look at our staffing capacity. When we close a building, the only time we've closed our building, we've closed 2 buildings. We closed the high school because our staffing capacity reached a tipping point. If we cannot have enough staff in the building to safely operate, we will close the building. We did it for Herber. We did it for the high school. But in order for us to keep our staffing capacities up, we have to have everyone operating with barriers, with masks, with the proper procedures, observing we don't use each other's phones, we don't eat in a crowded area because you have to take your mask off to eat, without a barrier. We also have to look at the number of students that are returning and, of course, the vaccines. How are the vaccines being available to our staff and eventually to our students? You know, I was on a call on Friday with state education department. And the question that was asked is, well, what about next year? What will we be doing next year? And the deputy commissioner responded, you have to put things in place for next year if children have not received the vaccines. So we're going to have to plan to have the cleaning, the barriers, the masks, the PPE for the opening of school. We have to. So we want to roll out away in the late spring when we know the vaccines are there. We want to be sure that we have all of the layers. You know, everybody's tired of me talking about the Swiss cheese approach. You know, when you go to the deli, you get a thin slice of Swiss cheese. You could probably see through it, right? Some holes. But you start putting those, if you do one layer over the other, one layer over the other, eventually you see no holes. And that's the way the virus, we have to attack the virus. So, physical distancing, making sure, you know, we are setting a time when we could open our windows again so we can have ventilation. We could do some outdoor activities. Masks will have to remain even in the fall. We will have to have masks. That's a hard thing to think about, but I have to tell you, our kids are much better at it. Hand washing and sanitizing will remain. We have to have, and we've done an amazing job. I want to congratulate Dan, Mr. Balsam. He has been the one who spearheaded all of this. We've had a testing truck here every Monday, and we've opened it up to the community because we believe the whole community being safe is safe for us. And we are going to continue that testing as long as we can, so that we can make sure that we have all of us safe. Now, with the athletes being tested coming Monday, we've changed our time. So the athletes will test from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. We've extended that time. And the rest of us, the community and staff, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. so that we can get everybody tested. So that's another layer that we'll put in. And then finally, we believe, and the projection is, with the 2 million vaccines that are now online to be distributed, we believe that by the April break, we should be fully vaccinated among our staff. So those are the layers. And with those layers and the reminder that there hasn't been a single case of a virus spreading inter-school, schools are the safest place to be. We are looking at an opening of school in our stage 2, because we're now in stage 1. We're looking at a stage 2. Well, first of all, we're heading into February 1st, which is continuing our virtual options. By the way, I want everybody to remember the virtual option remains to the end of the year. And I don't know, we may end up having to do something when we open in the fall. We are still questioning that. We may not have solely virtual, but we may have access to virtual in the fall. But for now, we have virtual as is, remaining to the end of the year. We have reached out to all of our struggling students. Our special ed students are in, not all special ed, all special ed students are in. All of our ENL students are in. Any student who we've identified as struggling, we are also inviting them in. And we have 50 more students coming back February 1st than we had before. So that's, particularly at the elementary, we see that more elementary kids are coming back than at the secondary. Then the next stage, so we are entering into stage 1 as of February 1, which is continuing the virtual, continuing hybrid, continuing all of those things. Stage 2, given the vaccination process, we hope to begin phasing in full return of the hybrid students. So we'll still continue our virtual classes, but returning our students April 6th, starting April 6th, which is the day after our April break, our spring break, beginning one grade at a time, focusing on our seniors first and our sixth grade. Seniors and sixth grade first. Looking at how we can accomplish that. And then beginning, and we're already starting to plan on year-end celebrations. We're counting on the governor allowing us to have larger gatherings. So we've been talking about things like a grade, the grade 12 having something very special for them at the end of the year. It will not be I'm pretty sure it won't be the same as the prom, but it will be something that will be pretty close if we're able to have that size gathering. And I won't say exactly what it is because Dr. Romana has to speak to his children and the staff, and I'm also charging all the other schools to think creatively, because our year end, our second graders, our fifth graders, our eighth graders, they also deserve year-end celebrations that honors the incredible work that they have done. And so we're going to look in stage 3 at how we distribute yearbooks, how we do moving up, and of course begin planning for the 21-22 school year. We will need to have some guidance from the governor, and we will also need to know where we are in terms of the state of affairs with the vaccinations. And we'll continue to retool it throughout the summer so that whatever we do for the opening of school will be the state-of-the-art practice.
Now, to move forward, Dr. Romano and Mr. Nelson have been surveying their colleagues across Nassau County to see what other schools are doing, how they're bringing some of their students back. So if you look on the left-hand side of the PowerPoint, the schools that are full-time right now, Mineola just their 8th grade, and it's just secondary. Belmore Merrick, East Williston, Cold Spring Harbor, Carl Place, Locust Valley just has their 12th graders, Massapequa and Bethpage. I think we just heard today Garden City. Now, there's some other schools that are in the same hybrid models as we are, and they're trying to figure out how they can bring their students back. Those schools are Limbrook, Cary, Plain Edge, Oyster Bay, Glen Cove, Farmingdale, Baldwin, Locust Valley, 9 through 11, and Garden City is now just switched over to the other side. So things are changing. Again, with all the protocols and procedures in place, these plastic barriers are going to help. All the things that we're putting into place should bring back some more students.
Yes, we talk to our colleagues, and everyone is putting their heads together. Look, if we can have wrestling that's starting as part of what we're doing, it seems to me that we can look to safely bring our kids back to where they belong. But I want to end on an inspirational note, and I'm sure this will become part of the way we think about our lives. This was left by our youngest poet for the inauguration, and I'm inspired by that, and we'll use those words to inspire us to think differently. And what she ended her poem with was, "For there is always light." And I feel that there's light at the end of our tunnel. If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. And so I'm going to call on everyone to see the light, to be brave enough to walk with us towards that light, where we can have our children back in school, back to the business of educating our kids and preparing them for their brightest future. So we will take questions.
Oh, okay. Question number one. It's like a four-part, but I think the answer is all the same, can be all put together. I know there is a plan to bring back all students back by April. Whether they or the teachers are vaccinated or not, isn't this irresponsible? What has really changed? We've waited this long for a vaccination answer, and now that there is one, we aren't waiting to bring students back full time. If we didn't care about the vaccination, then we could have brought them all back in September with the same results. Why are we rushing to return all students for just the end of the school year, at risk to all the students, teachers, and to all the members of the households?
I think, I'm a data person. And so we always go back to, let's look at those schools that have had students in, all the districts that are on the left side have had their students in all year. And we've looked at the practices that have allowed us to do this safely. And, even our surrounding district, we didn't put there are districts that are in hybrid, but they're not at 6 feet. They're not, but they are all with masks and barriers and cleaning and all of these things. Remember that Swiss cheese that we talked about? I consider the vaccine that next layer. I believe that we will have all staff who want to be vaccinated by April. I really do. And so that gives me another layer of the Swiss cheese. I think children will begin to become vaccinated. We have heard that there's a production on the way. And so I believe that with the appropriate barriers in place, the appropriate filters in place, that we've learned a lot since September, and we are and we can try to move forward with the knowledge that we have gained, and that's the reason why. And we also see the emotional burden that not being together has placed on children, and so those are the kinds of reasons why we believe that we want to move forward.
Okay, question number two is kind of in the same part, but a little bit at the end we'll have to pay attention to. You say the students need interactions with their teachers, but to return them safely to school full-time, we need to separate them from each other and the teachers with plexiglass dividers. This not only causes a feeling of isolation in the same room, but probably costs the district a great deal of money, which could probably go to a much better cause. By the way, how much will all those plexiglass dividers cost?
They cost a lot of money, and we bought them. They did. And we're hoping that the federal government will give us back some dollars. Mr. Caputo, would you like to say?
The plexiglass was about $55,000. We just recently purchased more, knowing that some more students are coming back for the second half. But I would also like to send out a reminder, we did get reimbursed for the town of Hempstead. We are being approved, or have been approved, for a grant to reimburse us for the death shield cost as well. So that does offset the money coming out.
But thank you for the person asking the question, because it is a financial burden. PPEs are a financial burden. The fog machines, we have spent over $900,000 on COVID. The state has spent $15 billion. It's costing money, and we're mindful of it.
Okay, next question is, if classes resume full-time learning in late spring or fall, will Malverne schools have to continue with mitigation strategies even as teachers are being inoculated with a vaccine, such as wearing masks and social distancing? I think we answered that a little bit before, but yes, like Dr. Lewis said before, we will be wearing masks, definitely, and the social distancing will continue until all students have the opportunity to be vaccinated. Next question. When the government decide all schools could reopen, will parents still have the option of distance learning if they are still not comfortable?
That's what I spoke to. We will have virtual through June. I've committed to it. The board has committed to it. What we do in the fall will be a conversation with the board.
Okay, next question. How safe are the classrooms?
I'd like to speak to this one. Every single instance of positive or close contact cases come across my desk on a daily basis. And I can tell you with full confidence when I look at the data, not a single interaction has caused COVID to spread within our walls of every building. We have not seen one from student to teacher, teacher to student, student to student, or teacher to teacher. Zero.
Says it's the safest place to be because we've put those mitigating circumstances in place. Schools took it seriously. But let me say this, as athletes come together and those seasons open up, I know those celebrations that happen when we win a game or those celebrations that happen when we win a season, and we will because we are Malverne, and we are going to be victorious in some areas on the field. I am begging you to be socially responsible about those celebrations because outside is where it's happening. That's where the spread is happening. And so we have to be very mindful of the mask wearing when we're on the bench or when we're visiting or when the celebration of a game happens. You've got to keep those masks on. Masks are the #1 filter for the virus.
Okay, last question. If middle school students are allowed to return to everyday in-person teaching and they somehow become exposed to COVID outside of school, family member and household has it, will there still be virtual instruction streaming like it is now for those kids to follow along at home? I know they can't just jump into an all-virtual class like they do in the elementary schools because of their schedules. If not, then what would school look like for an individual child needing to quarantine from a class?
They will be on virtual the way they are in the high school, that they would be able to be in a classroom and they would be able to have classes continue. They would continue seamlessly.
That is the last question.
They're in a classroom? When you say they're in the classroom, you mean virtually, like they're participating in their class through the internet. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Mr. Nelson and Mr. Vella for being the tech crew here. I hope that we've answered your questions, but we also have mechanisms for you to continue to send your questions in. We're going to do this together. We rise together. And so we're going to keep monitoring the situation. We will listen to the statistics. We'll look at the data. We'll support. I know some of these questions came from teachers because we've got to work with our teachers to make them more comfortable. They're doing an amazing job. We are looking at our districts around us and what they've done to help their teachers. If we need to put face shields in, we will. Whatever we need to do to make everyone feel safe and for our children to return to instruction. The loss in learning will compound if we don't take care of it. So thank you so much. Thank you to the board for coming out. Thank you to my staff, my central office staff. Amazing. We call them the Mule Team. I call them the Mule Team. They're fabulous. And thank you so much and have a good night.